Welcome to talking about keeping your sponsors in the loop, for a loop. So as I was saying, my name is Rob Kleiman. I am a community manager. Some of you may have had conversations with me, and as we saw, some of you are looking to start your sponsorship process, and some are in the thick of it right now and always want strategies. So I started at MLH back in November. At this point, I've worked with hundreds of organizers like you, helping advise on the sponsorship process. My background is in marketing and event planning, and the common thread is really, being able to communicate to others, what you hope to sell to them, and give them a good sense of what they're buying, right? And so, my story here is that, I used to work at a software company and had to sell a product. It was a piece of software, and I would get on the phone with people or try to email them. And sometimes they didn't understand what it is we were selling, and I had to really explain it to them. So let me ask you this: Does sending emails to a huge spreadsheet of people sound familiar to anyone? Yeah, totally. And does it ever feel like you're sort of sending things into the void and not really getting responses back? Yeah, so I don't want you guys and ladies to have to make the same mistake that I did. As soon as you start to tweak your approach a little bit, like tailoring, personalizing your emails, or thinking really thoughtfully about how you're engaging with sponsors, sometimes you can see your success rate improve. So that's really the topic of the discussion today, is just hearing from you on how your teams address this, how you've been successful, and an opportunity to learn from each other. So it's really democratic. We have 2 microphones. I'll ask some questions, and you'll all have an opportunity to share your perspective or ask follow-up questions to my questions, because really this is about crowdsourcing what works for people and what some of the challenges are. So that's really the context for this session. So the first question, when we start thinking about it, how do you nail sponsorship? What are some of the things that your teams do to prepare when you're gearing up to reach out to people? Does anybody feel like their team or hackathon has a really standard approach and they do it every year that's been passed down? And what does that look like? Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, and everybody introduce your first name, your hackathon, where you go to school.
Okay, so my name is Aman. I'm part of Hack UMBC, and my college is University of Maryland, Baltimore County. So when we start the sponsorship process, we usually have like a Google Docs with the first name, last name, email, and company of every single company we've had contact with in the past, and what we will contact in the future. And we like to kind of have columns saying did you send the email out? Did they reply? Did they want to sponsor? And then you kind of write what tier they want, stuff like that. And that's pretty much it for us.
Okay, and so do you usually document who's a returning sponsor and who's a new sponsor?
Not necessarily. We do have safe bets, so we'll kind of put them on high priority on we're going to email these guys first in the first batch of emails because they're most likely to sponsor, and then we'll kind of go down the list.
Awesome. So does anybody else feel like they're, yeah, we have a question, a hand up here. Here.
Thank you. I'm Laura. I'm from Virginia Commonwealth University, and we actually sponsor 5 hackathons out of the College of Engineering. We are lucky at the College of Engineering to have a foundation office that focuses specifically on donations and funds coming in. So we have the ability to work with sponsors, donors, contributors, both in the city, suppliers that may provide different aspects. Each of our hackathons covers a different aspect, be it computer science, electrical engineering, medical-based hackathons. So we have to make sure that we're not overlapping, asking the same sponsor for the same thing. So our foundation office luckily helps all of our students organize that so that we can focus each ask for a particular, say, Anthem. Anthem would want to help us with health hacks, but not so much with energy hacks.
Wow, that's really great. So with helping the students make sure they're not overlapping, what is some ways that you've done that and that everybody can learn here to maybe communicate with other people on their campus or regional hackathons?
What we've done is centralize that process. I'm actually not a student. I'm an employee of VCU. I've been there for about 11 years, so my main focus is event planning and management. What I do is make sure that each of the sponsors is divvied up based on what they do. And our foundation office works with each of these students to sit down and work on the pitch. How are we going to call them? How are we going to email them? How is it different from the hackathon that they may have sponsored last year? For example, with our health hacks, the theme changes every year. Last year it was pediatrics, this year it's Veterans Affairs. So that allows us to branch out and ask different types of people every year. We keep track of who we've asked. For example, Anthem always helps out with health hacks every year, so we want to make sure that every year somebody is reaching out to them first to say, hey, you guys are the best sponsors that we have. We want you to come back. What can you do for us this year? And we keep track of every single email that goes out, every single phone call that is made by each hackathon, by each student group.
Wow. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So it sounds like laying groundwork is a really important aspect of that. Who feels as if, over the summer they were laying a lot of groundwork for, their fall hackathon, and what was some of the strategies or things your team worked on to help lay that groundwork? What did it look like? We have a question way there in the back. Or answer.
Hi, I'm Adrian from FIU, and I'm helping organize Shell Hacks. I think a really big thing that kind of helped us lay the foundation for not just getting sponsors, but maintaining sponsors was using a CRM. Having one platform rather than just maybe like a Google Doc to send emails from, to look at emails from. And probably the biggest thing was seeing whether or not potential sponsors were looking at your emails. Like, I was sending out a bunch of emails, and I could tell who was interested and who was not, just based on one guy looked at my email 40 times, and one person only looked twice. I think I know who wants to sponsor and how to prepare for that.
Awesome. Yes, here in the sort of middle of this aisle. Your microphone's coming your way.
Hi, my name is Gaisna. I am from Technica, University of Maryland, College Park. I kind of had a question for the person who introduced the CRM idea, because I think that's really cool. I kind of worked with CRM a little bit for this sort of internship I had. I say sort of because it was internship plus apprenticeship type thing. And I found CRM kind of challenging at first. I didn't know how to switch over to it because the person I worked with was oh, can you make all of our marketing stuff go to CRM? And I'm sure, but I couldn't really do it. So I was wondering if there was any tips and tricks to kind of switch over to CRM and how to best do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll sort of open to the audience here. Does anybody else have experience with CRM that they want to share their advice?
I'm just curious, from a show of hands, who's using Google Sheets to manage sponsorship right now? And who uses anything but Google Sheets to manage sponsorship right now?
Okay.
Are they CRMs mostly?
So yeah, for the folks that did raise your hands, what are some of the platforms you're using?
So we're using HubSpot CRM.
Okay.
It's free. CRMs are really expensive, which is a huge thing because they expect that you're generating revenue and actually making a lot of money off of it. And HubSpot was the only one that was free and didn't totally suck or limit the number of users we had. So we went with that, and you can set up a whole sales pipeline in it and all that, and it's really great for your sponsorship director to see what the whole team's doing, see the process, see which sponsors are biting, and follow up with them and have more transparency. So next year we'll have the full email threads for every sponsor we reached out to, and we can deal with them and say, last year we reached out to you 3 months too late. We'll reach out to you early this year and get you in the pipeline nice.
And so when you were shifting over from Google Sheets to using something like HubSpot, how did you go about doing that?
So we had what we called a mega sheet, which was 1,400 lines long with different emails we contacted and whatever it was. So we just exported all those, and you can import from a CSV, and then you just start sending out batch emails. The free HubSpot gives you 5 templates, I think. So we had returning sponsor, decline to sponsor, cold contact, or warm contact. And I think we might have done a 5th one later, and we just drop the template in, fills in details, and one person can do easy 50, 60 emails in a day, and they're personalized, so it's not too bad.
So 50, 60 emails a day is definitely a large number. Like, what do we think is a good amount of emails to be sending? I mean, it's all a function of how much money you need to raise, but like, we can shout out some numbers. How many emails do you think your teams generally try to send a week? 40?
Well, thanks, man.
You can yell it out. It's okay. 10, 40, 80 a week? Okay. And what's if you don't what's the budget of your? Yeah. The hackathon budget. The budget for your hackathon this year. 70,000. So yeah, so it's just good to get a sense of like different sort of teams and how the number of emails you send out. So does anybody else have questions or answers to the CRM question that was asked? We just have one more thought on that. So it sounds like a lot of people use Google Sheets. So yeah, in setting those Google Sheets, like what are some of the goals that you set for your team? So we talked a little bit about the number of emails that you should be sending a day. Let's talk a little bit about timeline. Like who here sets sort of deadlines and dates for your team of when you want to be at a certain dollar amount, and how do you go about doing that? You can answer again since you were just talking about budget.
Sure, yeah. Okay, to a bit out. I'll go
your
over
name and hackathon.
Yeah, so my name is Andres. I'm from Connu Hacks at Concordia University, Montreal. So basically, one of the main things is that I was actually going to recommend, besides CRM, Notion. Notion's a really great platform also just to be able to organize all the information regarding sponsorship too, for let's say the team that you guys have. We were able to set also who's been contacted already, who was interested, how we're following up on them. So it's a great way for the whole team to be able to get engaged and be able to know who's been contacted already and who we're having success with. Something I just actually wanted to touch on before like actually talking about anything with budget was that one thing that we really try to emphasize is also not get the whole team involved with sponsorship at some point. So we also do these really cool like brainstorming sessions sometimes where we're trying to like brainstorm what kind of companies can we contact, and also who are the contacts. Like could we look them up in LinkedIn? Could we look them up also, for example, as an email that you could find somewhere else? Is it on a website? So those are things that are very valuable to sponsorship because they spend a lot of time just looking for contacts. So if you guys are able to do that for the teams, it's going to save them a lot of time just being able to follow up and send a lot of emails every week. So that's how we try to get to 160 emails in about 2 weeks. And then, yeah, so if we try to make an estimate about how much we could make in about, let's say, in 2 weeks if we contact 160 people, based on how much we've already made, let's say, in the first 2 months on sponsorship. So we try to make an estimate with what we already have. And from there, obviously, there's no guarantee that you're going to hit the same amount that you made in the first 2 months, but it gives objectives, and I think that's really important to be able to set a vision for your sponsorship team so they're motivated to hit the 160 emails, for example, for those 2 weeks, and also be able to have an idea of what they're trying to hit in a certain amount of time. So maybe we'll be like, okay, if we don't hit this amount of money by November 1st, we don't have an event. So that kind of gives them a realistic goal that if you don't have an event there, then we can't really think about even expanding even further and reaching like a $70,000 budget. So the first thing is about getting to the first step, which is having an event. And after that, really expanding from that. So that's what I would say, yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can everybody hear me? I'm hearing some feedback. We're good? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Yeah, so just continuing on about setting goals for your team, how you go about doing that, laying groundwork, and then we can start talking about, parsing out returning sponsors to engage again, and then, just new sponsors. So let's talk a bit more about groundwork here.
Hello, my name is Judah from Youngstown State University, Hack YSU. So as the sponsor list dies off, where do you guys look for new sponsors?
Hi, I'm Juan from MX Hacks. So about the question about where we look at, we usually send people from the sponsors team to several meetups so that they can start connecting with smaller startups. I mean, the good thing about meetups is that they're always bringing like new startups and companies that probably they don't know about your event, or that they are just like starting or getting funded. So that's a really good way we've invited like new sponsors. In Mexico, we have like some really big problems with sponsors sometimes, in which most of them are closed in the last month. So you're not able like to prepare a lot of the stuff that you would like to before, right? So if you want to send to print shirts, you have to wait almost like until the last minute to close the deal, or to send all the printable stuff that you have. So something that I would like to hear is, how do you speed up the process of closing up a deal with sponsor without having like to put a lot of pressure on them to close the deal?
Does anybody feel like they have a particular experience working with sponsors towards the 11th hour there?
Yeah, so this is more of, I guess, a proactive approach. So since it's early August, and I know there's some events in the fall, but for ours is spring. Oh, by the way, I'm Elias Suarez. I go to Case Western Reserve University. I run Hack Crew. And essentially, it's sponsorship, I'd say start early. Yeah.
It's hard to, I can't hear because of the speaker, but hold it a little closer.
Yeah, so my name is Elias Suarez, Case Western Reserve University, Hack Crew. And I'd say start the sponsorship process as early as possible. Last year, right after our hackathon in the spring, we started organizing the theme and palette for our prospectus the following month, so that by the time August rolls out, like our first week of class is after this weekend, and we already have all the iconography and palettes for our prospectus, so then we can start sponsorship as soon as we're back on campus. So I'd say it's really taking a proactive role to not only reach out to sponsors, but create all the imagery around it, all the websites, the marketing materials. Having that prepared makes it a lot easier to just focus on speaking to the companies and then, reaching out and asking for sponsorship.
That's awesome.
Makes a lot of sense.
Charles Mita?
Hi everyone, my name is Jared Smith and I'm from Queens College, Hack Attack and BQ Girl Hacks. Something that has proved for us to be effective is the career office and the alumni council on campus. They usually connect us with people who are recruiting from school, so they have given us money in the past and are continuing to give us money. So that's a good outlet to tap into if you run out of companies, like just cold emailing.
Hi, I'm Jason from the University of Maryland. I'm here with BitCamp. So my philosophy is keep emailing until they respond one way or the other. So keep following up, like give it 2 business days or something. You kind of have to apply pressure on these companies. Like you need the money. So another thing that kind of forces the process along is to arrange a call. I find that definitely gets more response than like emailing. So just be like, hey, if you have any questions, we can arrange a call. And then during that call, you can kind of sell it more and get more commitment from them.
Awesome. So who here is a returning an organizer that in the past helped a sponsor last year, and you're re-engaging with them, trying to keep them in the loop, and how are you managing that process about keeping them really engaged? Yeah, I can walk over. Just because we are, we're trying to keep them in the loop, right? So it's really important to figure out how to communicate proactively.
So I'm Vineet Parikh. I'm from Cornell, and I'm part of the Big Red Hat sponsoring team. So one of the interesting, at least for the spring event, which I think the first event I was involved with, I was able to get in touch with JetBrains and actually work out an interesting type of sponsorship deal where they'd provide us product codes. And in the fall, after I reached out to them and we talked a bit more about it, I actually gave feedback about how those product codes were received at the event, and we were able to improve upon that kind of offering along with JetBrains. So I think working with the companies and at the very least, like giving them feedback about prizes that or rewards that might not be like traditional sponsorship tiers is also really helpful for like ensuring that companies stay engaged with your hackathon in general. So yeah.
Hello? 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 Can you hear? It isn't working though. It is? Okay. Hello? Okay. Hi, it's Gaisna again. I kind of had a question about when you guys think it's best to kind of contact sponsors. Because when I emailed people, a lot of the responses I got was, oh, we've already set our budget for this year, and oh, we can't sponsor any more hackathons, or we already know where our money's gonna go, and that's why we have no money to give you. So like, does anyone know when companies set their budget so that you can like contact them that time, so that they don't have the like, for lack of a better word, excuse of like having their budget already set?
Hi, this is Rohan from UChicago. We are organized Uncommon Hacks. So this might be a weirder answer because our Uncommon Hacks is in the winter, so February usually. And every time we're trying to reach out to sponsors, it's usually in the fall. And the only answer we've always got, especially towards the start of the fall, is that we haven't set our budget for next year. So we can't tell you yet. So from the companies, so our biggest sponsor, for example, is JP Morgan, and they always tell us that we can't really give you a firm answer until January when we set our final offer. So what we've had to do is basically to accommodate for enough time. Like someone said before, you don't want to be doing things at the 11th hour, right? So we've pushed our hackathon back by 2 weeks, and now we do it in mid-February instead of early January, so that we have enough time depending on that schedule in January. So I think companies are pretty honest about when their schedule is going to happen. If they are giving you that excuse, you can literally just ask them, what is your date, so that next year we'll contact you at this point. And that's what we did, and that's how we got JP Morgan, for example, by contacting them when at the date they told us the year before that their schedule is set.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like, so if they give you a date, like scheduling a follow-up on your calendar to reach out to them like right when that window of time is probably it.
Hello, so I'm Carl. I'm from Unity, a former hackathon organizer myself. As somebody who literally gets all of your emails all the time about hackathon sponsorship, if you're lucky and you contact people that have thought forward about setting budgets for the future, they have money set aside that tends to flow around. But for most major companies, it's a good thing to keep in mind that like around October, November, December, sometimes even January is really when they start setting their budgets for the things that they're looking for. And so it's a good time to like really start engaging with those people. Now, granted, it's different maybe for HR people that you have to think about their timelines too. So a lot of it depends on the perspective of the person that you're working with. So like being on the education team is easy. Being on development team might be slightly more difficult. And being on HR is something around like, recruitment timelines.
We have about 5 more minutes, maybe even 3 at this point. So I wanted to quickly, think about follow through. So, in a situation where you get all the sponsorship money you need, you've run an amazing event, you want to re-engage with a sponsor. What are some of the ways that your teams have actually thanked your sponsors, documented the success of that partnership? For example, giving them feedback on their product, sending thank you notes, doing a wrap-up report. Does anybody do that with their event? Oh, sure.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay. My name is Brian. From the University of Massachusetts Amherst. I co-direct HackUMass. A way we do it is that basically we try to treat our sponsors the best way we can. Like we get them hotels, we get them a sponsored lounge. We try to treat them very well. And we get their personal information, as in like their work email. We don't just try to email the most general, like team@company.com. So after the hackathon, we usually ask them for feedback in the form of a form that they fill out, and then after the hackathon, we remind them of what happened. So if they sponsored a prize, we actually send them the link of the team on DevPost or like the system that we use, and tell them, hey, this team won. This is what they use. They're really thankful for it, and we pretty much And then that really helps later on because when we try to contact them in the next hackathon season, we say, hey, you see all that feedback you gave us? We actually implemented it. Here it is. We'd love to have you back and whatnot. So it's just trying to go the human way of saying thank you for coming. We'd love to have you again. And in the case that they can't, it's a really good way to try to get them on board in another way. So if they say, hey, we can't sponsor, you can just say, hey, you can sponsor a prize. You don't have to give us money. Just send something and give us like some constraints and we'll get them going.
Cool. That's awesome. So I wanted to thank everybody, you know, with the room change and everything, the schedule's a little wacky, but so, you know, a couple takeaways here is like, you know, as you are ramping up your sponsorship, you know, you really want to personalize your outreach, make sure that the other human on the other side of that email knows why you're reaching out to them, why your event is a good fit for that company, that particular contact of the company, what they do there, and be, you know, as thoughtful as you can about that outreach, right? So then the next stage, you're talking to them and you want to keep them in the loop as you're getting closer to your event. When do they need the logos? When do they need everything to you? When should they finalize their workshop? You want to, as proactively as possible, give them you know, set their expectations and manage their expectations so that you can balance their success with the success of your team, and you know, it eliminates stress in some ways, right? And then you have the third stage, which is follow-up. And so you run an amazing event. They had a great time there. They got to meet your hackers. You know, they met some of their goals. They got resumes. They had product feedback. You know, you want to document that success. Even something like sending photos and, you know, doing some social media shout-outs, right? If you put all of those photos in a nice PDF, say, we love our sponsors, and send it to them, you know, that's really heartwarming, right? So it's a matter of re-engaging them and keeping them in the loop. You know, as soon as you know your next event date, let them know. You know, figure out what their goals are for the next year. And so I hope you all found this session helpful and got to hear from each other about different strategies. You know, the conversation doesn't end here. You know, you'll be hearing amazing things all weekend, sharing your insights. And so, you know, if you have any follow-up questions, let me know. And we'll be doing some peer groups this weekend about sponsorships as well. And so really excited to talk to you about it. And so, yeah, hope you had a great time. And the next session will be on the schedule. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Woo!